Yeah, you couldn't be more right about that. It is absolutely counterintuitive, this notion of embracing weakness. Um, so why don't we just start with this? Just start with recognition. Recognize where your brain goes to. Does it race off to a sense of humility and gratitude, or a sense of pride and hubris? Try this. Talk to a creative. Talk to a creative about what happens in the creative process. What happens when they engage with their creative muse? Talk to them about the genesis moments that eventually become interpreted into a song or some other production. One of the curious things that I find is, I don't know that we would call this a gift. I don't know what to say about it, but I have this curious capacity in my work to properly interpret the needs of a business within the first couple of hours of being with the founders of that company. And gosh, 30 years I've been doing that, and it still shocks me that I'm able to, interpret's a pretty good word for that. Much in the same way that a musician interprets music, there is that creative muse that makes herself available and encourages me to step into a space that is hallowed and that is mysterious, and into a space that I've never been in before. And so when I'm in this process of interpreting the needs of a business, there is this other presence that's there. It's unmistakable. And so when you ask the question about recognizing weakness, I think that a key ingredient to ever getting to that place of interpretation is humility. I'll say it this way, in sort of a harsh way, if all you ever do when life is treating you well is recognize your strength and your contribution to life going well, and your instinct is to embrace pride versus weakness, I don't want to say anything other than you might find after a couple of decades that things start to fracture. That would be my concern. On the other hand, to the person who has been embracing weakness and humility throughout an entire career that's lasted decades, that guy, that gal just never gets upside down, never gets themselves in trouble. And that's really curious. So I wonder what it would be like if you were to intentionally, and maybe this takes you putting 6 reminders in your phone every day to embrace humility and to embrace weakness. I wonder what life would be like if you stepped into that space and made a dedicated effort to live life bathed in humility, in not needing the recognition of others. What would life be like in that context? I'll give you a quick example, actually, that speaks to today. So I was preparing for this series of lectures that we've been sitting through, and I was prepared, but not fully prepared. I think you know what I mean. Like, I know what life is like 100% prepared, and I'll say this. I was 80%. No, that's not true. I was 60% prepared for this series of lectures that's been taking place over this weekend. And because of this propensity towards humility and this propensity towards embracing weakness, I stopped and I just said, that's good. 60%. And what I was intentional about is I was asking the other 40% to present itself. I was asking for the other 40% that's not about my preparation, that's not about my being a technician or a strategist or a consultant or a coach. The other 40% that has almost nothing to do with me, I was calling on that and saying, come. Come. Maybe you've heard that notion of the space between the notes, the words that are written between the lines. And I think that's what my prayer was. That's why I left that big space, that big 40% to say, come. Come. That will help you, because you'll get done with a big encounter like we've had, and you'll take less credit for it. The world needs more people taking less credit. So to me, that 40% margin that I leave on the table is kind of this shout out, asking that maybe by leaving that margin that I could gain the kiss of the divine. What would life be like if you gained the kiss of the divine? Lastly, then, I think about the three monotheistic religions, and each of them scratch at this. Each of them have their way of saying to you and I, embrace weakness. This whole notion that there is this strength that's available, but it starts with our weakness. So maybe you, in all of your calibrations and calculations and preparations for life, maybe you're leaving a whole bunch on the table because you leave no margin for the divine. There is a flow there. You'll never get to that place if you never enter into embracing weakness and hugging humility. The fables that you and I have been aware of since we were children, nearly all of mythology is in this camp. Narcissus, right? Icarus. Certainly Lucifer, right? They chose to approach their daily existence in such a way that they were never disadvantaged by weakness. My belief is that you and I leave a lot on the table by always requiring the net sum of our lives to be some calculation of strength. History suggests that a bunch of humility. I'm thinking about Gandhi, I'm thinking about MLK. I'm thinking about people that actually shook whole cultures and societies and nations. Man, embraced weakness. Give that some thought after we wrap up. Maybe on your drive home or your flight home. Give that some thought. Maybe the thought is something like this: what one thing could I do on a daily basis in which I enter into the discomfort of weakness? And if you actually want to turn that into a discipline, then do what I do, which is to, when I'm early on in trying to engage with a new discipline, I just have to drop that thing in my phone like 6 times a day with reminders. Try that. Email me your thoughts. Follow up with me. And give me stories about how life recalibrated when you did what the ancients knew we needed to do, which is embracing weakness as a pathway to hidden, invisible strength. I like that.